Yeah, all right. Can we talk about Rebel and his fucking Western getup real quick, though?
Yeah,
I do want to point that out.
Rebel's looking all fancy schmancy today.
We just got back from Father's Day dinner.
Where's your bolo tie at?
He's very dapper.
This is my shirt from Father's Day that I got.
Dapper.
Very nice.
Oh shit! Hold on.
Speaking of, happy Father's Day, everybody out there.
I was gonna say Happy Father's Day.
Yeah, happy Father's Day. We got a special guest tonight, everybody.
Nice.
I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Middle center screen, Lenny. He's a gamer, streamer, and
You can't see it, babe.
a law enforcement officer.
You can't.
I'm working
All
on
in
it.
one.
Your AI is cutting it out.
This is stupid.
I don't get nervous.
Now it's better. Actually,
Yeah, now
Because
you're-
your face wasn't in the
Stand up
picture.
and
Now
move
lift
away
it
a
up.
little bit.
Now lift it up. It might. There you go.
What I miss?
That's awesome.
It blurred itself out.
To go with this Traeger.
Self-censorship.
Yes. So anyway, Lenny, welcome, man. I'm glad you came to
Yeah,
the
I'm
show.
happy to be here. Excited.
I missed it. Happy Father's Day, guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
Waiting for an invitation.
Tell us
You know.
tell us about yourself, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well,
What do you do?
I've been a Virginia law enforcement officer for 6 years now. So I'm on my third department. Some people would think it's a good thing. Some people think it's a bad thing, but I think it's good. I got a lot of different experience from different places. I did 4 years in the Marine Corps. I was a aviation explosive ordnanceman. I did 2 tours in Afghanistan, Qatar. Yeah, been pretty much everywhere at this point. Got out in 2014.
Damn.
Been living the dream ever since.
So
Living the dream.
So,
All right,
what made you decide to go from handling aviation ordnance and ordy, as we call them, right? I think you
Right.
guys call them the same in the Marines, right? Ordies?
Yeah.
Ordies.
Right,
Yeah, IOYAs or whatever.
yeah.
What made you decide to do that and then switch to law enforcement?
Well, I wanted to be a law enforcement officer for my whole life, really. And when I got out of high school, I thought, well, I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to go to college, so the Marine Corps is the next best thing I thought at the time to get a good start in law enforcement. In most places, you can just walk on with military experience. So I grew up with a pretty shit family, so I wanted to stay away from any of that stuff and make a good example for the rest of my family and try to help people in the future.
I find it hard to believe that you're a Marine without a picture of General Mattis on your wall.
Oh, you're right. I should have a picture of General Mattis.
Like Mad Dog.
With a knife hand.
Yeah.
A good one, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of people don't know. I guess one of the big things is why I really decided to be a cop was I grew up with 2 older brothers and a sister that all unfortunately were heroin addicts, and I grew up in had a very rough life growing up. So I wanted to become somebody that could maybe help families not have the same features I had with my family. And I know I guess it's a big thing to try to think I could make all these difference, but I do my best and hopefully I can influence somebody's life to do better, not get screwed over with the family like I had.
Yeah.
Lenny, do you have the chat up on Kick?
I do. Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay. Because there will be people talking to you in that, just FYI.
Yeah.
All right, the tweet is out on Twitter.
Nice. That's awesome, man. I'm like, honestly, how long have we been playing? I mean, we've all known each other for a while now, at least what, 3 years?
Yeah, like the beginning of COVID, I think I met Tuna
3-4 years.
The next day I started playing with you.
Yeah.
We met probably 2019, because it was
like
pre-COVID.
late 2019, early 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry if you hear anything in the background, it's my dog. He unfortunately had on Friday, he started to get really sick, and I didn't know why, so I took him to the vet, and he's got some rare condition, so he's pretty out of it right now, and he's been making a lot of weird noises.
Oh man.
You're gonna hear ours bark all night, so it's okay. Yeah, because Lenny, didn't I just randomly find you one day on Twitch streaming?
I think it was one of my first streams. You jumped in there, and I saw your name, and I was like, "Oh, Bombi Tuna." Like, oh,
yeah, yeah, because you hadn't even hit affiliate yet.
No, I wasn't even close to that point.
Ooh,
yeah, because
yeah,
because he was still on mids working, like, because you were working night shift and all that stuff, and just with us being in Japan, it kind of worked out. So I was just like, hey, this dude's legit, and I just kept, raiding out every chance I got. Hey, let's play all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know a lot of people don't say that military is law enforcement, but there's still a connection there.
Oh, there definitely is, definitely.
So
Jay's got a good question for you, Lenny.
Jay, what you got? Any pressure from your background to be part of a bomb squad? Actually, I have. That's a good question. I have pushed my command to try to let me go to CONUS bomb school, since I'm certified through the government for explosive handling, but I'd have to get like local. But they don't want any. They don't want anybody in our department to have that sort of training, because I guess somebody in the past got that training and they got picked up by the FBI, so they don't want anybody to get taken by any other agencies.
That's pretty freaking selfish.
That's very selfish.
Sad, to be honest, that somebody would abuse that power.
Try to hold you back.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, Lenny. Right? Like, y'all have support agreements with federal, and is there any installation around you?
Not right now, but in my last office, there was a NASA installation that I actually worked for before I became local law enforcement. Then we would work with them. But y'all
still have agreements and all that stuff, right? Like local FBI and all that stuff, yeah.
Yeah. The FBI, we have a field office in our city. I don't see them too often. There's an FBI field office. I think there's a couple, I can't remember. There's a DEA field office pretty close to.
Okay.
But we work with them regularly.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's how it is for us, or whatever. Because most police departments, if they have a bomb dog, they may have one. On the local side, right. So a lot of local military installations that do have them, there's agreements like our guys can dispatch, I think, up to 150-mile radius of us if something, if a bomb threat or something comes in. So that will go and support all the way out, because locals don't normally have the resources, and most of the time the local field offices for the federals that do have that type of stuff is going to take them a lot longer to get out there than what than what the military can get out there.
Right. Like in my last office, we'd find there was a old range from World War II, like a mortar range and bomb range, and we'd find unexploded ordnance on the beach all the time, and we'd have to call the I think it was either the Army or the Navy EOD. I can't remember. I think it's a Navy EOD that come out. They'd come from like Maryland up in it's a city called up in the north part of the Chesapeake Bay, Annapolis, I think.
Okay.
I just got to bring out the fact that there's snake food on my screen right now.
Oh yeah. But Jay, it doesn't really make sense. Yeah, but with thinking, I would thought the same thing when I got out of the Marine Corps, that all my certs and qualifications would carry over to the civilian world, but they do not. For the most part, unless it's like medical. Most medical stuff does. Medical stuff usually does, but not anything else. Like I was a federal certified police officer before I became a local law enforcement officer. I had to go to the local academy too.
Oh, wow.
How it works. Yeah.
Damn. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lenny.
Oh, you're good. So when I speak of the other offices you work for, the NASA base that I worked on and then worked for the sheriff's office, that base was located. That base was the county the base was in. We actually had a rocket explode in 2016, 2017. Most people don't some people know, but most people haven't seen it on TV. But there was a rocket explosion during a launch. That was pretty crazy. They blew up the pad and they had to evacuate the area and shit. It was nuts. Blew out a bunch of windows and shit.
Damn, that's crazy.
I remember when I was in school and around in this area I live in now, there was a jet engine exploding in a factory that builds them. They're testing it out and it exploded. And you could hear that shit for miles.
Yeah.
That's insane. Yeah, it was because the island they lived on is probably only like 3 miles away from the actual pad, so they can't like evacuate the island just for a regular launch. But when the rocket just went up and stalled, and I guess the self-destruct thing that they had malfunctioned, so it just fell back to the ground and exploded. It's all the solid rocket fuel.
Holy crap, man.
Yeah, it's insane.
Like a man type rocket, like that size?
So that NASA installation they're in the process of doing manned stuff. They just got rocket labs and
okay.
But back then they were just doing resupplies to the space station.
Oh yeah, that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
So you did like you were like
like law enforcement
station police. Basically.
Super boring. I was pretty much just a gate guard.
I was a gate guard. Oh.
Hey. Okay, let's not hate on the gate guards.
Oh, I know, absolutely not. Man.
Because I will tell you right now, I love being on the gate, especially now because I have zero responsibility at a gate. But I can catch so much shit at a gate, and I don't have to work for it.
Dude, my favorite thing is when I hear guys like up here in Whidbey, we got weather, you know what I mean? Like winter and shit. So, when it's like cold and snowy out, these sentries are up there for like 12 hours. And people have the audacity to just say like, they were like, have a nice day. So-and-so, the sentry says that. And then the person in the vehicle's like, stay warm. Motherfucker. That's the most fucked up thing to say to these dudes.
That's how you get popped for a random inspection.
Yeah. I'm gonna need you to pull over here, sir.
I'm not gonna lie, I think it's hilarious.
It's fucked up, man.
and no, but what the worst part is when it's raining outside and they roll up to you and they got their windshield wipers on high.
Hell yeah.
In the water.
Right. And then I'm an asshole, right? Okay. I'm the motherfucker that would just sit there and just like blink my eyes every time I'd get pelted with water. I'm like, what's wrong? And I'm going to be like, you're inconsiderate. And I'm like, what? Oh, and then it like the fucking light bulb goes off 30 fucking seconds later.
Dawns on
I'm
them.
like, I'm sorry.
I would get like the long clipboards and just hold it there and let it splash off that back into the car. Like, how's it going?
Well, and the worst is when it's 110 degrees outside and they're like, stay cool.
Yeah. It's like, it's almost like a fuck
Impossible.
you, basically.
I know I've been laughing at Tuna's tweets with his weather, just laughing my ass. Like, oh, it's 92 degrees, isn't that cute?
AG, you're the one that lives in the pits of hell.
It's the humidity, okay?
But we came from the snowiest city in the world back to the fucking toilet bowl of the United States.
It's true. It's true.
You know what I'm saying? Like Darkstar, he was just saying earlier, he said he's in Okinawa.
Yeah.
Right? And I fucking love Okinawa. Wi-Fi Beach was my place down there, but we were in Misawa up there, and that was phenomenal. That's where we actually got to meet Skip IRL.
During COVID.
Yeah.
Nobody got it.
Yeah.
By the way, in our interaction. Unless you guys
so
did. I didn't. So.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't get COVID until I went to Mexico.
I got COVID 2 weeks ago, and I worked. So most people, so you guys know, we're all in the military, but during, it might have been different for you, but during COVID, nothing changed for us really. The only difference was we were supposed to wear a mask, but we never did. I mean, I was helping EMS and the medical examiner's office carry out dead bodies from COVID and stuff, and never got COVID the whole time until December. That's last year. I got COVID for the first time, so
yeah,
I got pretty lucky, but I was around it day in and day out. Never.
It was funny. One of my coworkers on base over here got it. So anybody who was around him had to go get tested.
Right.
We all tested. I popped hot for COVID. I didn't even get sick. Nothing.
Yeah.
Had to go get the vaccine, and that fucker destroyed me.
Facts.
The vaccine fucking destroyed me. I felt like I was on death's door.
Yeah.
We got sick before, like, you even heard about COVID, or they weren't even calling it Corona at the time even. And we think that was it, that we had COVID because it was bad.
Tuna did too in Tokyo.
That was when I was coming back from Okinawa. I had to have gotten it while I was in Oki because Ash, she was TDY to Hawaii at the same time. And my flight flew in the day before, so I just spent another night with somebody I met in Japan or down in Oki.
We were going to meet up in Tokyo and spend the weekend before we went home since we were TDY to 2 different places.
And she flew in. I went and got the hotel, all that bullshit. Next day, I woke up and that was legitimately the sickest I have ever been, I think, in our 18 years of marriage.
It wasn't
body aches.
It wasn't that morning though. It was that week because remember we went out and about and we were exploring.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was like lunch.
Yeah, you took me to that vegan restaurant. You had found this vegan restaurant for us to go to.
That's what happened.
You just shush your mouth.
So you went outside.
The vegans.
And
that soy burger and it fucked everything up.
I mean, I can go outside in the yard and have a vegan restaurant.
No. But that's where he was he was sitting across from me and he was like, I think I'm getting sick. And so I had to take him back to the hotel and we stayed there, holed up, taking care of him the rest of the time we were there.
I think a lot of people got COVID before they really started saying, hey, this is a thing.
Yeah.
They didn't realize what it was. It just felt like the flu, like a bad flu,
For me, I will run a fever. Anytime I get sick, I will never run a fever for more than about 18 hours. And when I do, that's when it's over. That's when I'm getting over it.
Yeah.
And I was sick for 2 days straight. We didn't even go anywhere. We stayed literally right there. And then I was like, all right, there was a fucking, which I forget which one of the freaking gas stations, but it was literally right next to our hotel. I would meander on down over there. We'd go get some shit and then go right back up. That was it.
Yeah. People still are getting it, but it's cool, stay home.
Yeah.
That's all it really was. Is like a different strain of the flu.
Yeah,
it was like the worst body aches I had ever felt.
No, we don't even have
the whole body.
Now. If you get COVID, if you test positive, you don't have a fever and don't show any symptoms, you don't stay home. You go to work normally.
We're at the point where you get 3-day quarters and you're done. That's it.
We're on 5.
And then you come back to work.
Yeah. We're on 5 symptom free. Come back to work. You can wear a mask. Obviously, people can wear a mask if they want to, but fucking things don't work. So,
well, I don't want to change the subject, but I did see Jay did ask a question.
Yeah.
I see that
to Lenny earlier. Did you see that one, Lenny?
About the training question?
It was about the stigmas.
Yeah. Well, there's 2. So, stigma against me. No, they in law enforcement, everybody really they like to see people come with some sort of experience, even though I don't have a certificate or a cert you could use in the civilian world. They still let you use your experience. So, in my last office, I don't know, I was the only one that was a Marine Corps veteran. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but
toot it.
For example, with the
Marines,
with ARs with any AR platform, I could work on any M4, M16 platform. I knew everything about it. So in my last office, I was pretty much the armorer, and I never went to armorer school, but I knew everything that was wrong with every AR we had a problem with. But yeah, any sort of explosive training I had, anything like that, I used in the field, but I didn't have any per se. I didn't have a certificate that said I could do anything, but if I'm the guy there and they don't have anybody else that can do it, I'm the guy that does it. So they look to me for answers.
Yeah. So you would say
you need a big crayon in the background.
A big red one. Yeah, they make them.
Okay, no. What's your favorite flavor? We have to ask it.
Yeah.
Oh, grape, obviously.
So purple.
It's always
Grape.
purple. It's always purple. It's always purple.
But you're
DB's
an
favorite is
Ordy,
purple.
man. You're an Ordy, though. You're supposed to like red the most, I thought.
Yeah, but red's like I hate cherry. If it's strawberry, it's good, but red could be cherry, and cherry's
pink strawberry.
Pink.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, right.
That's like the best Starburst flavor.
The other question, I guess, here's the second question too.
Yeah.
In the academy, look, did you have prior experience to make it easier, more difficult? Well, in law enforcement is pretty good, goes hand in hand with the military. So everybody brings you in. It comes in with when you come into law enforcement from military experience, everybody's pretty open and likes to see you there. Nobody really talks down to you or treats you any sort of way. They act like you're one of their brothers, I guess you'd say.
So you would say there's a certain level of respect that comes with that, you think?
Yeah, definitely. It also depends on the office, because like the office I work in now, there's most of us are prior service guys. But like my first office, I was the only veteran, so I was looked at a little differently.
I've got a question for you. Just I'm in very good with all of the local law enforcements around here, just because 90% of my career has been where we're at right now. So I've got to know these guys. But somebody coming from the military that was not on the MP side, how was that for you? Like, was that a little bit different? Was that a little bit of a challenge, or did you feel like it was just like the military, you're just learning something new?
It's really just, I was lucky. It would have been when I went to the Federal Academy. Was the first academy I went to. I was always intrigued by law enforcement. I'd watched all the shows, watched all the documentaries. So I had a small grasp of knowledge of how the Constitution and laws work. So I was just eager to be there. So it really wasn't difficult for me in that aspect, because I was excited and I was interested in the training that I got. So it was pretty easy for me. But like, there's a guy in my unit now. He's an MP in the Army, and he's a weekend warrior. But it's pretty different for him. For what he explained to me, he said that it's really different, because like even the PMO guys like we had in the Marine Corps, like I've talked to, like your rights, I guess, to an extent on base are way different when it comes to like local level. Like you don't really have a lot of rights in a barracks like that you do if I went in somebody's house. So it's way more difficult in the local level, I guess, in that aspect. But it's not too different. The way you talk to people is different, I guess. The rank doesn't really have a factor in local law enforcement.
Yeah.
Well, and from what I've seen with the Army, the way that the MP works is, and this is the way that I wish that all military, law enforcement would do it, would be modeled after the Army, because the Army is the most closely modeled after a civilian law enforcement than any other branch.
Yeah. And that's a lot of the state academies are modeled after most of like the Army or the Marine Corps boot camp as well. Like they're all paramilitary academies.
Yeah, that's just way watered down.
Oh yeah, it's when I went. Well, the academy I went to was during the like the height of the hate law enforcement craze that happened. So they didn't have as many applicants as they wanted in the academy. So they made it super easy for people. The PT got really slack. It was really just about getting the training, getting out, because they couldn't afford to lose anybody. So if you came in and you couldn't run, they really didn't care. They needed bodies at the time. So my academy was a cakewalk, and even if it wasn't a cakewalk, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But it was we did push-ups and ran a mile once a week. Like it was nothing.
Well, now, I mean, good.
Like state academies, I went to a local academy. State academies, like the Virginia State Academy, is like most of the instructors are like drill instructors from the Marine Corps. Like they try to keep it as close to boot camp as possible.
So they're out there with frog voices and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's insane. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Flashbacks.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, with the state though, the one thing that a lot of people don't see about state is there's very few state troopers out So if so in their area that they have to patrol is so large or whatever, their backup could be, you know, way further away than any other department.
Right.
So they have to learn how to deal with a situation on their lonesome, because it could be 20 minutes before the closest person gets to them, especially in a very rural area on an interstate.
Yeah, I'd like the last office I worked for when you guys met me when I lived in BFE. The sheriff's office I worked for is very rural, and all our backup was troopers, and our closest, it was just us, 2 deputies and a trooper at night, and the county was huge, so you could be 20, 30 minutes away from another officer or trooper, so you got to learn how to talk to people and learn how to use tact, honestly, because if not, you could get in a bad situation real fast and not have any help. And we also, knowing that, we also, like I said, we learned to talk to people, treat people with respect, and we all worked, we did jiu-jitsu on the side, so like that, just in case, but
well, and
for the most part.
Is the Virginia academies, are they off the Barnes standard?
I don't know what that is.
It's so the Barnes, I'd have to look it up, but like it's a federally recognized physical standard or whatever. And I know a lot of law enforcement, that's what they operate off of. Like, let's be honest, the Air Force does have the least stringent PT tests, right?
Definitely.
You know, but the Barnes standard is even less than that.
Yeah.
Like, I think I think you have to run your freaking 1.5 miles on the Barnes standard in like 1440 or some stupid shit like that. Yeah, is what it is. But it's like less than 20 push-ups and like 35 push-ups. It's like the standard to be able to graduate.
In Virginia State as a whole, they all took on, every state's different now, because there's very few states that have the same standard, but Virginia as a whole now, they use it's a private entity that came up with this algorithm called LawFit. It's I think it's 1.5 miles. You have to be able to bench your body weight. I think do 30 push-ups or something like that. The 1.5 miles, I think, is like 12 minutes, something easy like that, but it's nothing crazy. But they're going to, and they're doing away with that now, and they're going to something that's more throttled to your actual work. So like buddy drag, stuff like that, doing the obstacle course and jumping through windows and being able to unholster your firearm and fire it after you do the course, have an accurate shot instead of just running a mile. Because I mean, if you are chasing somebody, the likelihood that you're going to chase somebody more than 100 yards is very slim.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You showed us one of your foot chases before, didn't you?
Oh yeah, that was in my last office. Yeah,
I think it's in the
my first one. Yeah,
that was in there. I think you put it in a Discord somewhere.
Yeah, it's in there. Yeah. I actually got one. I don't know if I talked to you. I got one in January here. It's actually pretty embarrassing. I got into so we have the downtown area of my office now is full of bars like anywhere else, but we have this one bar that's open later than all the others and kind of brings in the undesirable crowd. And one night I was patrolling that area and there was a car, like a rented, I think it was like a Mercedes SUV riding through the area recklessly. So I went to go stop it, and he stopped right in front of the bar, stepped out, looked at me, and dipped downtown. So I started the foot pursuit, chased him downtown, and I'd only been there 8 months at the time. And I'm chasing downtown, going on the radio, getting my call outs or whatever. And I went around this corner, and downtown we have these trash cans that are cemented in the ground like any other metropolitan area. And I saw the trash can. I was coming around the corner. I thought to myself, well, I'll just push this trash can over and keep running. Because at the time I didn't know that they were secured to the ground. So I hit the trash can at full speed, and it threw me off balance with my full plate carrier on, and I just hit the deck, smoked my head, got up for a second, was dazed. This is all right in front of the bar, by the way. Full bar, full of people on the sidewalk. And hit my head, and I tried to stand up, and I was like dazed, fell over again. Stood up, and I guess I knocked myself out for a few seconds, stood up and tried to chase the guy. He was gone, but I had a head injury from that. I had to go to the hospital. That's pretty embarrassing, but
Jesus,
they don't ever let anything I talk about now in the office, they're like, "Hey, watch out for those trash cans out there; they'll get you." Everybody, I just.
That's the one thing that I've learned. Military, even in the civilian LE guys that I've met, like you're never gonna live nothing down. One incident's gonna happen, you're gonna live with it for the rest of your career, no matter what.
Dude, it's stuck.
I hear about it a couple of times a week easily now.
So is your nickname Trash Can now, or?
I wouldn't tempt them because I'm sure that
only when I play COD.
Trash can stay undefeated.
And at the time,
every trash can when we play together now.
I think I just had COVID like 2 weeks before that, so like my lungs were shredded.
Damn.
So I think on top of sprinting, and most people don't understand. I'm not a big guy, obviously you can tell. I've always been a sprinter. I can run pretty good, but when you're screaming over the radio, telling people, trying to give every description, everything, that takes a lot out of you. And I just had COVID, so like the oxygen to my body was not there, and I hit my head, so I was out of it. I was so done, and everybody's laughing at me outside the bar. I felt like I was a very small individual at that point.
That's fucked up.
One
man.
person asked me if I was okay.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, there should be more people like seeing if you're okay and shit.
Right?
Not standing there fucking laughing at you. Like,
everybody's like, look at that. Yeah,
look at that cop over there. Fuck,
cops are literally the most hated people around.
I was gonna say, a lot of them, unless you have an attachment to cops, like me, I'm partial because, so anytime something has to do with cops.
I don't know. Lenny's a pretty good looking guy. You probably had like all the drunk chicks like, oh my God, are you okay?
Normally I would agree with you and that would be really excited, but this bar, I don't want any drunk chicks from that bar. That's not the bar that I want.
It's a cesspool.
That's the end of the road. Like everybody's hammered and that's just the last option there.
Streamer bar, is it?
Yeah.
So what I want to know now is the follow up later on of when you pulled somebody over and they're like, "Hey, you're that fucking cop that fucking smacked that trash can outside the bar."
Yeah, I'm surprised nobody's brought that up since then. Actually.
Yeah,
that's pretty interesting. That guy, he, I can't talk too much about it because it's still in court, but he had it was a rented Mercedes, one of those like luxury rentals, and he had like a bunch of different narcotics inside the vehicle. He had a firearm in the driver's seat, and luckily we arrested him a couple of days later because everybody hated that guy. Everybody knew him, and immediately after that happened, we were getting anonymous tips in the office. "Hey, you're looking for this guy. This is his name. We know him." Blah blah blah. So we had him pretty fast.
That's good.
Well, I mean, at least the follow up. So people were laughing, so they didn't check on you first. They were laughing at you first, but at least they called and are like, "Oh yeah, here's the asshole he was chasing."
They don't want anybody to know they called us. That's
we don't want to be. But I mean, we don't be narcs or rats,
Right.
I mean, within my community, right? Cops on base, bro. Like if something happens, I'd rather take the fucking Article 15 for sleep it on post than actually say something.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I 100% get that. Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
So Weed Out the Week had a.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
We had a question. I don't know if you want to answer it. It's up to you, but
don't have to.
See.
He said, "Has he ever had to shoot anybody
or at people like that?"
That's a question I get. Everybody, usually children, ask me that question. I've never shot anybody, but I would say this office I work for now is we have a lot of money and a lot of officers, so it doesn't really come to that, and the crime isn't as bad, surprisingly. But my last office, I've come very close to kill a lot of people, and I have a lot of instances where I could have killed people and had it been totally justified. But no, luckily I have not had to kill anybody because I don't think I'd be the same person now if I had to. But
the whole point of law enforcement is to not have to do that.
Right.
We'd rather resolve a situation.
Everything we do that is the very last moment do you ever want to have to do is pull the trigger. Unfortunately, now it's even worse. Like everything's under a microscope, and officers are getting hurt because they're second guessing themselves. But
So
it should be the last option.
So with that said, Lenny, do you think that has changed with all the training that you have done? Would that affect whether or not what force you use in any given situation?
Yes, especially because I started in law enforcement before the whole this whole movement happened. So I saw before, during, and after. Before was a whole different mindset. I wouldn't say cops weren't more ignorant or sketchy or anything like that, or dirty, but force was used. I wouldn't say force was used more. I guess it depends on the area and what you got, but your options weren't really there. Like now, we're at the office now, liability is a big question. So liability is always talked about every day. They're always talking about. They don't even want you to use your hands anymore. Honestly, they'd rather use some sort of something on your tool belt, like something less lethal that's going to cause less effect to the body instead of using your hands. Even if you're trained to use defensive techniques or anything like that, they want you to use OC or taser or something. But it doesn't matter because, like me, I tased somebody a couple months back and he blew out all his front teeth because he hit the pavement. And I did what I was supposed to do, use my tool belt, and I'm still getting sued. So it just comes with the job, I guess. But most people don't know. Like 2016 in Virginia, we have something called implied immunity. So if somebody on the street arrests somebody, it's a good arrest. There's no violations to their constitutional rights, anything like that. They can sue. Anybody can sue anybody in the street. So if I do something, like I said, on the street, I did it correctly, anybody can sue me, but the department pays the if they find that there was civil liability, the department pays for damages, not the officer.
Yeah.
But in 2016, they tried to take that away. They tried to take applied immunity away for Virginia law enforcement officers, and I think most of the country tried to take it away. It didn't happen. Didn't pass the House, but that would have been a huge huge detriment to any law enforcement in the country, because then we would have had to take personal payment.
Yeah, I was going to say that now, like with this incident, that's not a civil liability then, right? Like you wouldn't, they're not like suing you office, personally, but
since my force was found to be justified by my office, the city itself will, if the judge finds that they need to pay or whatever, that there's
that's just crazy.
To be paid, the city has to pay it. But yeah,
that's one of the unknown facts that a lot of people I don't think realize about law enforcement on the outside is if you are cleared of any wrongdoing in any situation, that subject that you arrested or whatever force had to be used, even if it was deadly force, they can still take you to civil court and sue you.
Right. Just like in a lot of these shootings, their families sue the department because for wrongful death suits, even though there was a justified shooting.
So yeah, like it just because they say, oh, it's a justified shooting, it is not over for that particular officer. It is never over.
Have there been any cases where families have actually come back and won against a justified shooting?
Here, especially here nowadays, a lot of them, most of them, I'd say, especially in bigger cities. Bigger cities would rather just pay out and not have to deal with it. It doesn't even matter if it's justified or not at this point. Like they just, especially out west, they just pay out off. It's really just a paycheck. As soon as somebody's family member gets shot by police, everybody sees dollar signs immediately.
I feel like that just perpetuates the problem, though.
Yep.
Well, and you got to look at society today too, right? Because law enforcement is now under such a microscope. Okay, when that thing goes to trial, who is our jury? It is today's society. And and freaking prosecuting attorneys, that's what they're going to go for when they go to select jury members. So you are now going to see more of that. So that's where that implied immunity, within departments is so crucial to have.
The whole fair and impartial trial is gone out the window nowadays.
No.
Yes.
Everybody's got bias.
Everyone's living in their own little echo chambers now, and all they hear is themselves and the people they surrounded themselves with that think the same way. So they're having something fair is just, it seems so just far gone now. Far gone.
Yeah, I feel like it's such a prevalent issue that people walk into it now with a preconceived position, regardless.
Yeah,
because it is such a common thing. Like it's not new. The subject is not new. The idea is not new. So they already have their thoughts on it before they walk into a jury situation, you know? So I don't think it matters what's in front of them. They're always going to lean that way.
People can't be impartial anymore.
Yeah,
exactly.
Not at all. And so they should, hung juries should be a normal thing now, but they never are.
It's sad,
Merck
man.
has a really good question too about, this is actually, I think about this every day. She asks, do you feel like how you do your duties is affected by how people perceive cops? Yes. I think about it every day, and unfortunately, I wish I didn't think about it, but how I act on certain calls is, my mindset has changed because of how people see things, and it shouldn't be. And I've seen officers make mistakes because they might think how the public perception might be, and that's not how it should be. We should be impartial to everything. We should use the force necessary for the situation, or speak to somebody just because of the situation, not because of how other officers have been treated in the past or how the media thinks of us. We should law enforcement should never have changed. Nothing should change, but it is unfortunate. It's just how it is with social media nowadays.
I think if you go back and rely on your training and only have to worry about relying on your training and, you know, making that decision based off of not because somebody has 1,000 cell phones out, but because, you know, you've been trained to handle certain things a certain way, and then your job is to execute that, you know, and then make judgment calls on the fly based on your training. But now you have this other thought in your mind, like, oh God, like,
it might get sued.
What am I doing?
It's a distractor. It's literally a distractor to, you know, throw these guys off their game. It is really what it is. In, you know, the only people we have to thank for that is the fucking news media nowadays.
Right. And there's even conversations now on calls, supervisors or what have you, when they talk about civil liability or something like that. That should never even be in the conversation of our investigation. Like, that comes up all the time, and it drives me nuts. Like, especially in my office.
It should literally be like, hey, do what the fuck you have to do, or whatever, to protect life and property, because that's technically what I'm supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah. And
nothing else should be. Those are the two things that should be going through your mind, and no other distractors.
Well, the problem is today, in society today, is that you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. That's the fucking problem. No one believes in the Constitution anymore. Well, not a lot of people. Well, maybe there's a lot of people. I don't know. I'm full of shit. But the Constitution is, you know, you're innocent until proven guilty. It's not the other fucking way around. Like, people see this little tiny snippet of things and like, oh, this guy's fucking guilty, or this gal's guilty. Well, that's not the right way to think about shit. Right?
Well, you know, I've always had
way.
A problem. Now, I don't know if your guys, like, I don't know if Navy or any other branch treats it differently, but that was a major problem I had in the Air Force. And I didn't have, in my, you know, realm, it wasn't so prevalent as much, but in, you know, his being security forces with all this stuff going on and everything, the military treats you that way in general. Like, they always have. It's always been, the second you're suspected of anything, you're immediately stripped of everything, pulled off of duty, separated. Like, you're immediately already treated like you did something wrong. It's the opposite of what it should be. That was a major, major problem for me, because I had situations with my troops where, you know, they'd be accused of something, and there I am having to fight for them to just keep their job, or, you know, and that you shouldn't have to do that before they've even done an investigation. That's not how it's supposed to work. But
basically what happens now in the Navy, at least I can speak to, and it probably bleeds over into the Marine Corps, since it's the same, it's the Department of the Navy. And I only said that, Lenny, because you're a Marine. And I just wanted to remind you that a Marine is
the men's department. Anyway,
let me get back to my point. My point here is that now what happens if someone is accused of something, right? An Article 15 or whatever it may be. Someone's accused of something, there is a report that's made, and then there's an investigating officer assigned. So that person is still presumed innocent until the investigation is complete. And then all the data is collected together, and, you know, the person's guilt or non-guilt is then called by usually the commanding officer, unless it gets sent out to a court-martial, which is a whole different ball game. But a lot of times too, they'll revert to using like NCIS, Navy Criminal Investigative Services, to take a case, take all the interviews, take all of the facts, all of the evidence, put it together and say, yep, this is a case, or nope, this is not a case. And a lot of times commanders will take that information and utilize whatever it is that they've recommended. So if like, we're not investigators, you know what I mean? I can go around and write down interviews and take statements and read people their 31 Bravo rights all day long, but like, it doesn't matter, because I am not a judge or anything like. I'm just there to collect evidence, you know, and then turn it over to someone smarter than me that their job is to do that. And that's kind of how it's done now. However, like Ash, you were saying, like, people do get pulled out of their primary position if there is a perception of danger or a threat, generally. So in the case of,
that makes at least a little more sense.
Yeah. So in the case of, like, let's say someone is accused of sexual assault, right? There's going to be a military protective order set. Those two people are going to be separated no matter what. Whether before any type of guilt or innocence is ever found, the protective order is in place to protect both people. Both people get the same resources to use. And then until if one person is found unsubstantiated or not guilty from that, then that's the way it goes. Now, can we keep them separated still longer because perhaps the victim still just doesn't, you know, they don't want to be around the person? Sure, that can happen too. But that'd be the case where like someone would get pulled away from their normal duties and job and moved somewhere different, you know?
So that actually, it can be a whole nother conversation for another time, but I was a victim while I was deployed of a certain sexual nature, and kind of a similar thing happened where the second I made the, you know, report, as soon as the commander found out about it, I feel like he handled it very well. But the guy was on a plane within less than 12 hours, you know, to send him home, which I mean, a deployed environment could be treated a little bit differently too. But obviously there was going to be an investigation happening, and they were like, and we were in a deployed environment. So there's like, it's a small unit, you know, so it was, you know, but it wasn't a case of like he was in trouble per se at that point in time, but he was removed from the situation and sent home immediately, so that they could look into it. And
that's the smartest thing to do, really. It is the smartest and safest thing to do for everybody. So
yeah. But then I had a case where, these are the types of cases I have a problem with. So I had a commander who, when he came to us, he was a major, so he was an 04, and he was due to put on 05, and he was accused by a civilian worker of like some sort of discrimination or something. And if I remember correctly, he was either biracial or something like that himself. But anyway, it was a Caucasian lady who accused him of some sort of racial discrimination and how he was treating her and things like that in different cases and stuff. They withheld his rank. They withheld his promotion for over a year while that investigation was happening. Yeah. And it was found unsubstantiated. So they had to pay him back. So he got like over a year's worth of pay, right? But how shitty was that for him to watch all of his peers put on 05? Yeah. Knowing that they all knew that there was a reason, even if they didn't know why, they knew there was a reason he did not put on 05. You know, for nothing. It wasn't fair to him to be treated that way while they determined whether or not he was guilty. You know, those are the situations that frustrated me.
Yeah, the UCMJ, I never realized while I was in, but And it's kind of messed up to think that when you sign on the dotted line, like a lot of your freedoms and rights go out the window when you join the military. Like then I'm in law enforcement. I have to. It's at the top of the list is uphold everybody's constitutional rights, but when you have a commander or something that may have bias, or a CO that may have bias, and they're the judge in that point just because you're under UCMJ, they have no law degree, or they have no experience with law whatsoever. They can just make claims and make determinations just because of what people tell them or with no evidence. It's kind of messed up. But
yeah, because they've been given the authority. Yeah. That's the thing that people don't realize. And you serve in the military, like there's a certain amount of rights that you give up to do that.
Yep.
Like your freedom of speech, limited, 100%. There's limitations.
Absolutely. If you get kicked out in that aspect for some wrongful, you accuse or something, and you get kicked out because unfortunately you didn't have enough evidence to prove your innocence, you get kicked out, or you under the other than honorable, or you're dishonorable discharge for something that you didn't even do, or something like that. Like I had a friend that he lifted weights a lot, and he took I think he was taking testosterone or something. I forget what he was taking, but our commander had a problem with him, and they did a random health and comfort, and they found estrogen blockers in his locker, and they were accusing him of using steroids. He never used steroids, but they said, "Oh, he's using estrogen blockers. He's got to be using steroids." So they kicked him out. There was a drug test, blood test.
No drug test?
No steroid. They did it, but there was no steroids in his body. But because he used estrogen blockers, they said, "Oh, that proves that he was using steroids." So he got kicked out.
See, and that's where, with my understanding of military justice or whatever, that there are shitty fucking lawyers in the military. I will be the first motherfucker to say that. But that's where a good ADC, Area Defense Counsel, so it's your defense attorney, should have been like, "Nah, we're taking this court martial."
Yeah.
Because he would have won it 1,000%. It does, but you know, if you look at it, like, because as you were saying it, I'm like, no, that's court martial. He'd have won it, been back, and he would have been, you know, he'd have been moved instantly as soon as he was found unsubstantiated, because he could have turned right around and went to the inspector general and be like, "Hey, this is, you know, EO discrimination, whatever the fuck could have been," and could have taken that damn commander down hard.
There's a lot of issues in the system for sure, and I just we do this every episode, but I just want to do this just to let everyone know the disclaimer. Okay, these are all personal views. They don't represent law enforcement agencies, the DoD, or the government in any official capacity. All personal only. So that's our disclaimer.
We should probably put that disclaimer in the YouTube videos and stuff too. There. Okay.
Yeah, I made sure to put it on all.
I gotta go. Yeah, I should actually have that on my Twitch. Honestly, but
you can copy and paste mine, bro. It's on all my shit.
That's what I was gonna say.
Go ahead. Have I seen Tuna's balls?
That's what I was.
Are we there already? It's only an hour in.
We're running a whole hour and no one's talked about his balls.
I know.
Yet.
I thought we were going to make it through and not.
But anyway,
well,
that's what I was going to say earlier, Lenny, is out of, you know, with me and Sket, with us still being in or whatever, we've got to worry about what we say.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, like, you know, the scrutiny and all that stuff or whatever, somebody could see it. And like a lot of my guys at work know that this podcast exists. And some are probably lurking in the fucking shadows right now watching it.
Yes.
You know,
disclaimers help me, but they don't protect me from anything.
Exactly.
Officer, off duty, I'm still a law enforcement officer by the standard of. So I can still be, anything I say can be used against me or anything.
Why is the stream offline?
It shouldn't be. So that's why we protect ourselves by holding and withholding certain things, operational security and certain things like that. Protecting when nobody's identity is ever going to be used, you know, in any kind of story or anything like that. So nothing happens like that. So I think we're all pretty smart about that. Yeah.
Government files being transferred in Discord.
Yeah, right.
Thanks, Rebel. You just flagged the FBI. I appreciate you, bro.
I said no.
Come search the Discord. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, come on in. No, we do that so people understand, like, hey, we're not making at this point in time, we're not making statements on anyone else's behalf, but we're only talking from ourselves. So
you're getting an inside look of a day in the life of what people have lived and are living.
Right.
It's honestly a big part of why I got out. Huge part of why I got out. And a lot of that is because I joined so late too. Like, I say this all the time, like, for, especially like Tuna and Skep, like y'all grew up in this, like you've been doing it for so long and you started at a young age that it's kind of just what you grew up doing. I was 28 when I commissioned, so I was already a little bit older, and I just losing my autonomy at that point in my life was just not something I think I was fully prepared to do. And that was a very frustrating thing for me. So it was a lot of the reason I'm like, whenever Lenny said living my best life ever since, I was like, please preach, because that is exactly
yeah.
These have been the best years of my life after getting out of the military.
Well, especially now that you have an office, but we'll talk about that later.
Oh, yes.
But office. I can't speak for Skep or whatever, because I mean, he's made it to E9. I'll never make it to E7. But I've always told Ashley, I was like, I will get out when I'm not having fun anymore, whether that's retirement or not. Well, right now I am having to make it to retirement because 3 years ago I wasn't having fun anymore.
He has been having fun for almost 10 years, to be honest. 8 years now, probably.
But I can handle it. But like, it was about 3 to 4 years ago where I was like, fuck this shit. Like, I'm done. Like, I want to go. Because the way that I look at it, and granted, we're not at war anymore or whatever, but I looked at it and I'm like, I don't trust this motherfucker next to me to deploy. And at that point where I was at, we had a lot of Nimrods that didn't really know anything. So it took a lot of work trying to train these guys to get them to the level that they needed to be, and on the mindset that they needed to be. And that was my whole thing, is if I can't trust the person next to me to, get me home, I need to go. And that's when that realization hit. And it was right around that COVID time.
Right.
And how they handled COVID. That was like, as we were older too, it was like, I'm so glad I got out before. Like I was transitioning out as they were in the talks of trying to make the COVID vaccine mandatory.
And I cannot imagine being in the military during COVID.
I told Tuna, I was like, I'm telling you right now, they can kick me out. They can have my uniform. Like, I'm not, and this is how many of you have heard this before, but you knew what you were signing up for, right?
Yep. I've been signing
no, you don't.
No.
But here's my,
I didn't predict that one.
No, well, I was going to say, here's my caveat to that, right? When I signed that contract, I knew which vaccines I was going to be responsible for getting, right? This is a new vaccine. This is something completely new. I did not. So in all reality, if this had been a corporate company, they would have been required to ask you to re-sign a contract.
Correct.
And, to be okay with what you were doing. And, if you didn't want to do that, then sure, we could talk about termination. But there should have been some sort of conversation about it, versus if you don't get it, you get kicked out. And then I called this before it happened. I was like, they're not going to be able to get away with this for very long. And sure enough, they enacted it. They kicked out all these fucking people for not getting the vaccine. And now they've rolled it back and it's not mandatory anymore. Well, what about all those people you kicked out? Because they didn't get it, because they didn't hold off long enough.
They just get an honorable or general discharge with it.
Well, a few of them are getting paid. A few of them are getting paid.
It depended on who it was, why, and all the things. It was,
There's a lot of people that held on to their application of religious exemptions or certain other types of exemptions. That shit get put on a fat pile for so long that it sat there, and then they reversed their thought on it, and then they just took that whole pile of shit and just shredded it. Done.
You just had to keep it.
You just had to keep it rolling. Yeah. Keep it tied up. Well, you're exactly right.
So my thing was with that whole mandatory vaccine and all that stuff. I wasn't worried about it. Like, did I want to get it? No. because I know the way that my body reacts to any sickness. Like, I had swine flu, and they thought that I was a fucking medical miracle when I had it.
How the fuck you know, H1 swine flu.
And that was years ago.
06 or 07.
Yeah,
Jesus.
But then when H1N1 was a thing, I got that too. Again, thought I was a medical miracle.
Yeah, the bird flu.
You know. Yeah, well, dude, I was like
in bus seats or some shit.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, dude, I feel like I'm fucking dying. So I went to the doc and H1N1. They were like, okay, we're going to fucking do the swab, all that bullshit. And then it's like 2 weeks to get your results. I went back to work the next day. You know, I felt all right. And then they called me and they're like, hey, you had H1N1. And I was like, okay. And they're like, when'd you go back to work? And I was like, the next day. And they're like, were you running a fever? I was like, no. And they're like, what's wrong with you? I was like, nothing. I was like, my immune system just, it's really good about fighting shit off. It actually pisses Ashley off to no end. So I was like, why would I get a fucking vaccine when I know my body is, you know, how my body fights shit off?
Yeah.
Right.
And then the vaccines came out and they had fucking, what was it, Moderna and what was the other one?
Pfizer.
Yeah.
Johnson & Johnson.
And
Johnson
Pfizer.
Johnson.
Well, yeah, but it was Pfizer and Moderna first. And the only thing that the base had at the time was Moderna. And my dad had gotten that one. And he was known for high blood pressure. And his blood pressure actually spiked post getting that vaccination.
And Tuna has had documented high blood pressure over the years as well.
So I was like trying to medical waiver it because I'm like, I don't want to have to do this.
Yeah.
You know, I do not want to put myself in a situation that I've been holding off for so long to now force myself into just for, you know, a fucking vaccine for a flu that's going to, you know, in the next 2 years is going to be a flu. And that's, you know, predictions were correct, hypotheses. And it wasn't until whenever I got here, I went to the doc because Piper ended up getting it. And I had to go that was back when we had to do the clearance test. You had to have a negative test before you can go back to work. You know, if you were, you know, within close proximity of somebody. And I was talking to the doctor over there, and her husband was actually guard. She goes, get J&J. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, you know, the J&J vaccine is the exact same thing as the damn flu vaccine that you get every year. And I was like, fuck it, let's do it. So that's whenever I broke down to do it because, you know, when you're trying to change my DNA and all that stuff, you fuck off.
But you know what they told him? You know what
it fucks with you because they're documented medical shit from the vaccine that are long term. I have a guy that's got respiratory issues now because of it.
Yeah, there's side effects with every vaccine potentially.
Yeah. But what I thought was funny is whenever he was talking to them, like he did a consult and everything to try to like do a waiver, right? So he's doing this consult over the phone. He's like, hey, you know, high blood pressure runs in my family. I have documented high blood pressure. My dad got this vaccine and he had this issue. And, you know, so I want to try to explore a waiver. And she's like, there's no waiver for that. I'm like, well, there wasn't a waiver for anything until there was a waiver.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah, right.
I mean, it was the worst thing ever.
They were giving people raises. Luckily, in my last office, they didn't care if you got it or not. But my office I work for now is more progressive. But they gave people raises to get the vaccine. So that's kind of messed up to think that they gave people monetary incentive to get a fucking vaccine, whatever.
Hey man,
stupid.
In the big picture, there's somebody way up there getting paid.
Yeah.
Just saying, man.
Oh, how many politicians got rich off those fucking vaccines?
Bro.
That's what I want to know.
I'm just saying that our forces are run by civilians, and there's lobbyists out there in those big companies. So I'm not gonna go further than that, but I'm just saying, man, people.
Looks a little weird.
You know?
Follow the money. That's what they say.
Yeah.
Not gonna say it out loud, but
I'm not saying.
But the problem is, you know, that money goes to distant relatives, so it can't be tracked back to one person.
Right. That may or may not be allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that one of the Kennedys? He killed somebody, and then he drove home. They transferred all of his money to a trust. So, and then turned himself in.
Can't touch them. Can't touch the trust, man.
Yep.
There's certain types of trust you can't.
He hit somebody with a
touch.
car or something.
Yeah. It's what is it? There's like a couple types of trusts. One of them, like you can't even touch it, like law or anything. They can't even touch it. I can't remember which kind it is. But it's generally for like your
Swiss bank account,
ultra wealthy rich. Mostly they have this type of trust, and everything they own is owned by the trust, which they have control over. So it's kind of a weird thing, but it works, I guess.
I wish I had enough money to put in a Swiss bank account.
Well, Jay, you have a place to stay. You can come over here, and then you can get a feel for how it is down south, and then you can move down here if you're involved in a forest fire. That's all I'm saying.
Where you at? California?
Yeah, in California.
Why does everybody want to burn California down? I don't get that.
I like California.
That's nice San Andreas' fault. Like, can we please recreate the San Andreas fault? Just let California go and be in its own island.
Yeah, right.
Just sink.
Oh my god!
Make it to where you actually have to fly to California. I don't like California. I'm sorry, guys.
They want to be their own country anyways.
I am not a fan as well, and I live right next to it.
Yeah.
So, Lenny, have you ever had to deal with those sovereign citizens yet?
I have. Luckily,
oh gosh,
I've always wanted. I've watched all these videos, and I first started Law Enforcement. I was like waiting for the day, and the one I finally got was like the most uneducated cyber citizen I ever had. Like, it was like he tried to stand up and say this bullshit that I'm a traveler and all sorts of shit, and we just like educated him. And he's like, I guess you're right. I'm sorry. It was easy. I was like, yeah, you didn't put so easily.
The worst sovereign ever.
You fucking sue that company
He's
you paid
fired.
your subscription to get your fucking fake license plate and shit.
So Lenny, you've referenced movies, documentaries, videos twice now. How do the movies and the shows and all of those things relate to your job now? Like, is it any different? Is there some resemblance?
Oh, I can't watch any shows now. They drive me nuts.
Bro, tell me Bad Boys is fake, please. Bad Boys. Is it fake or not, bro?
1,000% fake.
For no chance is there going to be a detective in any aspect going to be working the street like they do. Unless you're, I guess, Vice or something. But like when I was a kid and I was younger, like anybody else, I loved cop shows. It's one of the main big reasons why like I always wanted to be in law enforcement. But it's nowhere near. Like nowadays, I can't stand watching anything crime related.
Please tell me RoboCop is real.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We have one at our office.
Yeah, no, you need to ask fucking AG that. He works the closest to Area 51.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we watch cop shows all the time, and Tuna does this. He's like, we're in the middle of watching something, and he's like, "There's no way you would have that on that gun or whatever." And I'm like, "Don't ruin this for me." Like, I don't.
They cleared that room wrong.
I'm the same.
Yeah,
I do that all the time.
He does. He's like, "There's no way this would happen." By the way.
Yeah, it's like these. I can't watch. Like, I can't even watch like. Every now and again, I'll watch a snippet from a crime podcast or something on TikTok or something, and just I understand like everybody knows how law enforcement works, but like they're just like if they're gonna dive into these high profile murder cases or whatever, they need to like educate themselves how law enforcement works, because they're like they talk all this shit about investigators and detectives and all this stuff. I'm like, you don't understand how it works. It's like shit doesn't just come in your lap. You don't have a computer. You just plug shit into it. It gives you everybody's fucking name, date of birth, and fucking DNA because they creamed on a fucking car seat or something. I don't fucking know.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, we watch like we watch the Rookie and like shows like that and stuff. And he's for the most part he enjoys it. You know, we like watching those shows, but it's just funny because we'll be sitting there and he comes up with something completely technically random, and I'm like, I don't need any of that information. Like, I don't like. Just let me live in my ignorance.
It's more like I guess they're like the shows that show like I guess like Chicago PD or all this shit. Like the shows that show like
the drama
control aspect, and it's too dramatized. But like a lot of the shows that are good are shows that are more leaning towards detective and investigation work. Like there's a show on HBO that I watched recently about a homicide. I forget what it's called. It's got
I was just gonna say, what's it called?
It's not True Detective, is it?
Yeah, True Detective.
Great
True
show,
Detective,
dude.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
great
I've
show.
heard of that one.
It's like obviously they're super sketchy and there's some questionable things that they do, but I'm saying as of like law enforcement as a detective as a whole, I would say that's closely related to how it actually works as an investigation, especially how much time, the timeline they showed, how long it took, all this shit. Like people don't understand, like they're like, oh, you get this DNA swab or you fucking get a fingerprint, you put it in this database and boom, you got a hit. No, it doesn't fucking work like that. DNA
CSI.
takes. I've had my last office I had probably 4 years ago now when I had a B&E on a trailer, like an enclosed trailer. Somebody had like a work trailer that had broken into and had a bunch of tools stolen out of it. I found a flashlight that I swabbed for DNA because touch DNA is huge. And if you remember this, anybody listening to chat, if you touch anything, your DNA is on it forever. Like your gloves, you breathe in something, your DNA is getting everywhere. But
so it's on myself a lot then, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so I swabbed this flashlight, set off the DNA.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Lenny.
And then I switched offices and I came here. I got a call like, what is it, 2023? I got a call in October of 2021, and this incident happened like 2019. And they called me like, hey, we got a hit on your DNA. Mind you, this guy his DNA had already been in the database because he was a felon, but the hit took like 2 years to come through because like I forget what they call it, but like for one, the workload of the crime lab is huge. For two, DNA for some reason when they do the synthesize it, whatever the fuck they do, I don't know the scientific term, but it takes.
We're just a bunch of dumb cops, okay? We're not scientists.
But it takes a while. Like a regular DNA, like I sent 2 DNA matches or a DNA swab back to be compared to a suspect's DNA. That's going to take like 9 months to a year to come back.
Yep.
Like that has to do with workload and just how it works in general. But that shit's investigations take a lot of time. DNA is huge, but it's not nowhere near. It's still light years fucking behind where it should be.
It doesn't happen in a 1 hour episode.
No,
right?
Yeah. I can attest to that on like the court side because like they show you like the crime happened and then they're going to court and convicting the person or whatever. When I got shot, it was like 3 years later after they had already arrested him and everything that we went to court finally.
Yeah, right. It's fucking insane.
Wow.
Like, and they have new things now. They're really expensive. Only the feds have them. They have like the retina scanners and the fingerprint scanners that immediately check matches in the database. We don't have access to that. And there's very few local agencies that have that, but the feds have them. Like ICE and what's it called? The Department of Homeland Security have those. They're just like these things they carry around and they fucking can match instantly. We don't have that. That'd be great, but we don't.
We have it in Iraq.
But there's only but that was probably like CID or OSI or whatever. I know that those are widely, in a deployed environment, but there's only very few stateside that even have them. Yeah, and those are even federal agencies.
Speaking of hackers now, so this is kind of like not really off topic, but it's more law enforcement related. So I never knew this. You watch all these shows about like hacking and stuff, and like that's like one of the hardest things nowadays with all these cyber crimes. For us to investigate anything that happens, I guess in the dark web, you'd say, for you to, I guess, set up a sting or to catch somebody in the act on the dark web, you have to do everything legally. So I can't. For one, you have to set up your own fixed server in your office. You have to have a dedicated computer, a server with its own encryption, everything, just to access the dark web to investigate crimes. And if you are investigating those crimes, you have to do it legally. So I can't go into an illegal site or get into a legal site that has a proxy or something like that illegally, just catch somebody illegally. It's messed up. Doesn't make sense to me. But to catch somebody doing, if it makes sense, to catch somebody doing something illegal, you have to do it legally. So if they're already on a site that's illegal to access, I can't go on that site to catch them. It's messed up. And they need to change that because more and more now, especially through the U.S. mail, everything's being done online and through the U.S. Postal Service because we can't. There's no way we can do it. We don't have the funds and the ability to fucking investigate that shit. Like
so which
identity, like when your identity gets stolen, or most of the time when somebody gets scammed or something, it's usually not somebody in this country. But when it is, most of the time, I don't like to tell people, but I try to tell people it's usually just a loss. Like, to call your bank because they give me the name Sam Smith. Okay, cool. I can track the deposit or whatever from that guy's bank account, but more than likely it goes to like a PayPal or something like that with a fake name, and his address is some fucking vacant lot in Oklahoma. Like, usually if you get scammed, you're screwed unless it's somebody really dumb. But it's really easy to mask to cover your trail in internet crimes, unfortunately. But that needs way more funding nowadays. It's not getting it. It's only going to get worse.
Yeah, that's like the wave, man. That's where everybody's doing all their crimes now, it seems.
Well, but I mean, that's why cybersecurity is such a huge paying job nowadays.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Like, I did a class or like a online thing for the dark web. And I learned everything. I didn't even know. I thought it was just like a thing. It's not really like the dark web it's a thing, but it's weird. It's like you have to have a special browser to get on, so that you still need invitations to get on these websites and stuff like that. It's not. I thought it was just like, oh, you go on the dark web, you type in Google dark web. That's not what it is. It's not.
Yeah, no.
The Google can't bring up any of these sites.
I heard Navy actually invented that or made that browser.
Sure.
Yeah.
The Onion browser, whatever fucking.
I love watching the videos of the guys, like the hackers reverse hacking the scammers in like India.
Yeah, I love it.
Dude, it cracks me up. I love it.
I watch that dude all the time on YouTube. When he takes freaking 40K from them and then gives it back to the people, I'm like, okay, that is wholesome right there.
Yeah.
Can we talk about what my wife just said in fucking chat right now? I know all of y'all read it.
I'm reading it now. I'm trying to catch up. I'm like, what the hell are we talking about?
So Darkstar started talking about
Cash doesn't take out the trash. What does that mean?
Oh, you gotta read. You gotta start.
So Darkstar made a comment about women watching all of these crime documentaries and all that stuff. So that's whenever I said all women like to watch them because it gives them a false sense of how to get rid of us, right? And then she said they just scare me to sleep, and I said, until you get 500K. Oh. And then she said, not worth it. Cash doesn't take out the trash.
That's GLI.
And I'm logging off. I'm out.
Priorities right there. That's priorities.
I'd rather have somebody to take out the trash. Like, come on now.
You just pay somebody.
Yeah, you could pay someone to take the trash out.
That's why you have
kids. But run out eventually.
I was just gonna say, you got kids.
So back to the TV show, and which one is more accurate, Reno 911 or CIS?
CSI.
Reno 911. Actually,
I'm thinking
with how funny. Honestly, my job is probably the most comical career I could ever imagine. The shit I deal with every day is so funny, but obviously you got to keep your bearing. But for most part, I cannot. I laugh to people right in people's face all the time.
So
is it rural? So are you dealing with like a bunch of like rural, like my type?
Wait, what'd you say?
I know now. He was asking me, is it closer to Reno 911 or CSI? Actually, I mean, how comical Reno 911 is. It's actually pretty close to the people you deal with.
Yeah,
it's pretty close. Obviously, the officers don't act as stupid as they do, but no. To answer your question again, the department I work for now is that I work for a metropolitan city. I used to work for a very, very rural sheriff's office, but my last sheriff's office was definitely way more interesting to work for because we had to way smaller, way less funding, so we had to be really smart on how we did things. But like the calls there were crazy. Like I had just to speak of as close to Reno 911 as I can remember. I had this call with my old partner. We were like best friends. Since we didn't have any backup, we wrote every call together because if we didn't, we would be 30 minutes apart. And we went on this domestic call between these people we dealt with time and time again. But there was a call that were fighting or something like that. We get there, ask what's going on. The lady's like, well, you're going to laugh. You're going to think this is funny, but he wanted me to suck his dick and it smelled like fish. So he punched me in the face because I wouldn't suck his dick, and I could not keep my straight face. I walked outside and started fucking dying. I was weak. I was like, oh my god,
fish dick.
It's like it's not funny. I'm like, it's hilarious actually.
How did he know it smelled like fish?
Oh, he was down there checking it
Yeah,
out.
she smelled it. He said his dick smelled like fish, and I was like, and he was mad because she wouldn't suck it.
So it was a shrimp dick then.
Yeah.
No, literally, I was
The sardine.
there was a Sunday morning, like I was on the road, and I wasn't on the desk or anything like that day. I was on the road, but the desk sergeant was on the phone, so I took the phone call because 911 came in, and I answered it, and I'm like, 911, what's your emergency? And he's like, hey, he goes, I need help, and he's whispering, and I'm like, sir, what's going on? And he was like, my wife just hit me upside the head with a frying pan. And I was like, do you need medical attention? And he was like, yeah, send somebody. He goes, this bitch crazy. And I was like, well, sir, why did she hit you over the head with a frying pan? He goes, because I told her that she needed to make me breakfast.
Oh, shit.
I laughed on the phone. I literally laughed on the phone at the guy, and then I handed it to the desk sergeant. I said, this is yours. I already know the address, and I left. Then I get I get over there, and I mean, me and Skep are not the biggest guys in the world, right? 5'6", 5'7". This dude's like 5'4", but he's married to fucking a fucking blue whale. I mean, she's huge. Yes, the biggest definition of it. And I get over there and I said, hey, ma'am, we got a call from your husband. She goes, where is that tiny shrimp motherfucker? And I went,
I mean, to be fair,
I was done.
She made him breakfast.
That man gets
She scrambled his eggs.
Yeah, I mean, she scrambled his shit. That's for sure. Right. But my man was legit fucking smacked over the head with a cast iron skillet.
When I was a kid, my neighbor killed her husband with a cast iron skillet.
Holy shit!
Jesus.
Yeah.
We just went from breakfast to murder.
Yeah, how Jesus.
It's crazy, man.
To answer your question, any department, I think, with any sort of funding or any sort of technology they can get to help them, I'd support it 100%. I don't care how small they are. If any sort of training or equipment they can get to help them.
Yeah.
It's the best. Anybody wants to talk about militarizing the police is fucking stupid. If you've worked the street, we should get more militarization. You don't understand.
Yep. Like, it's a fucking war zone, man.
Why do you think the NYPD has fucking armor plates in their doors? Not because it makes them look cool. That's not why they have them.
Mm-mm. So I gotta ask, you guys don't get, like, basically when you guys are chugging syrup, you have to use the Great Value brand instead of like Log Cabin, is what the funny
Aunt Jemima
is. Aunt Jemima got canceled or something.
It's not Aunt Jemima.
I don't care.
Something Mills now. What's
it got canceled or something like that.
I'm still gonna call it Aunt Jemima because it's the OG.
We all grew up on it.
Correctness.
You know,
fuck political correctness.
I can't with that.
We all grew up on it. I love Aunt Jemima. God dang it.
Actually,
what's up?
I just saw recently there's a guy, I worked a double homicide on July 4th of July weekend, 2021. And I just saw the guy just now went to trial. I think the trial is ongoing now. I don't know how I haven't got called to it, but it's good because I don't want to go. But regardless, I had a double homicide in July 2021, talking about how long things take. He's just not going to trial, and this little backstory. So this homicide was just a normal day in the county. The county I used to work for is very rural. There's a lot of blood gang population. The county is really high, so a lot of our problems are gang related. But the poverty line was really high as well, so crime was rampant. But usually when I worked a homicide, it was usually drug related or gang related. But this one was just this is the only homicide I ever worked that wasn't gang related. So we got a call about a shooting at a barbecue on 4th of July. So where this house was in the county, luckily it was off the beaten path, and there's the only way to get there is one road to get into the town. So when we were going, we passed the suspect coming in. We stopped the suspect because the description of the vehicle was pretty good, and it was like a very unique color car. So we were able to stop. We stopped the guy. He was hammered on multiple different narcotics and alcohol. And he had ended up shooting himself. They had a firearm on him, and he shot himself, I guess, when he holstered the firearm. So we get there. I'm the first on scene to this barbecue, and I get there, and there's an old lady that had been shot in the face twice out in the front yard. In the backyard, there was a gentleman that I'd worked with, unfortunately, on he was a EMT that I worked with time and time again. He got shot in the chest. He was the he was the boyfriend of the suspect's sister, if that makes sense. So what happened was the suspect, they had this regular 4th of July barbecue, and everybody was getting hammered, and the suspect got into an altercation with his nephew and turned to his mom. His mom was trying to calm the situation. He said something along the lines of, I'm tired of taking care of you, and pulled out his M&P 9 and shot his mom in the face twice. And
Jesus.
The boyfriend of his sister was trying to break it up after that fact, and he shot him in the chest twice. He was trying to crawl away, then he turned him over, shot him again. That was pretty crazy. And his sister ran away, and he tried to shoot his sister, so it was almost a triple homicide. But
Jesus, man.
Yeah, we caught him on the way out. He was so fucked up. He didn't even. It's hard to determine if he knew or was just making up. But from what he said, he didn't know anything that happened. He didn't show any remorse. So I guess it was truthful, because he swear that he didn't know what was going on. Didn't remember anything. But yeah, it was pretty gruesome.
Oh my gosh, man.
It was just they had all their streamers set up and all their alcohol and their nice decorations and shit, and there's just blood everywhere. But it's pretty insane. I just saw that because I saw some of 4th of July, and it's been 2 years now. But that's probably the craziest homicide I worked that wasn't gang related. Gang related homicides are pretty nuts, but they're dime a dozen. That was just the most unique homicide I worked here in recent years.
Do you think that the level of poverty equates to the amount of crime that happens or that you see?
Definitely. That's because I thought when I came to this office, being that there's more people, it's a city, it's going to be crazy. No, not at all. This office I work for, there's been times I felt like there was going to be something was going to happen, but I've always felt safe at this office. One, we have funding. Two, we have more people on the road. But two, the crime, we have more calls, yes, because there's more people, but the level of severity of these calls is way lower than the sheriff's office. Sheriff's office I work for, we had less calls, but they're way more violent.
Yeah.
When my gun was out of my holster way more at my last office than it ever was here.
Jeez, so with that, Darkstar asked a question: would you rather be somewhere that has a high crime rate or a low crime rate?
Me being young, like my first office I worked for was a small town. It was boring. It was really safe. Everybody knew everybody. It was fun to work for. A great office. But I was 22 at the time, 23. I wanted to do more, so I went to the county to be more active. That's just me. And just wanted to be just young and want to do more things. I got into a career to fight crime, not to sit around and fucking hand out candy or whatever. But I still do that now. I like community policing stuff. Like I actually have a kids and cops thing coming up next week where we do like a week with kids under the age of 15 come out for like a week, and we take them to the water park, and we go do a bunch of different stuff with the community. It's pretty fun.
Oh, nice.
So, so with that question though, like with society today and how law enforcement is under the microscope, would that change your answer to that question on where you'd like to be?
No, because the way I see it now, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. If it happens to me, whatever. At least I know I did my job. I did it well. If I get sued or thrown in jail or unjustly, whatever, I'd rather just. There's nothing else I'd rather do. So I guess it's.
I guess. What's the point?
It's going to happen.
Right. I mean, I have to imagine like the mentality for somebody like you who's actually passionate about what you do, and it's not just a job. Like, what's the point of doing a job like that if you're going to intentionally avoid having to do the shittiest parts of the job, or put yourself in risky situations?
Yeah,
right?
I guess once you're in it so long, it's almost like I couldn't see myself doing anything else. So there's really nothing that's going to change that.
So how many years has it been, man, since you been a
It'll be
law
6.
enforcement.
It'll be 6 here in September.
Damn.
But 7.5 counting federal as well. But
well, good.
The only thing that ever kind of maybe second guessed law enforcement was what we talked about earlier was implied immunity, because that would ultimately hinder my job, because that would make it so I could get sued. Like I explained before, I could get sued directly by somebody on the street instead of to my department.
Yeah.
But if anything outside of that, whatever, it's you have everybody knows the risk when you sign up for law enforcement. One, obviously it's dangerous. But two, there is a liability comes with it. And whatever, it's I've taken that at this point and accepted it.
I mean, based on like making a mistake, really, right? That's tragically, a tragic level mistake like that, I suppose would be, where that line would be.
Well, me and Ashley have had the conversation, about like, she didn't really want me to do. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I turned, I turned 1 year older this week. So, and when I get out, I'll be 38.
Right. Yeah.
And I've thought about the only thing that I know is being a cop. That's the only thing that I know. And it, honestly, it scares me a little bit of getting out and doing something else besides that. But, with the scrutiny or whatever, I think it gets to Ash a little bit more than I do, because she was like, I don't want you to be on the street anymore. And, and I know part of it is, hey, I'm tired of shift work, being around the family and all that stuff like that. That is a huge consideration. But, it's one of those things like, I'm not a fucking desk jockey. I don't like it. Yeah. I'd rather be out and about and doing the fun shit. Mm. But there is that one little inkling in the back of my head of the way that society is and the cell phone age when it comes to doing my job. Because then it's going to be scrutiny, because you see all of these news reports that people are now relieved of duty for, some dumb shit. And it's like, oh, now you could possibly not get paid for doing your job the right way.
Right.
Well, the only shit that ends up on the internet is the mistakes,
bad shit.
Not the million fucking other stops that happen that go perfectly according to plan. And
one thing that did help
legal
is when we went to most offices in the country have body cameras now, which I was at a department before when I started where body cameras weren't a thing and nobody thought they were important. But obviously now they're great, and I think they're great now, but that changes the way a lot of cops think and how they hold themselves on calls and stuff too. So you already know you're on camera to begin with, so you're going to talk as such. So if somebody's got a cell phone on you, I could care less regardless. But like speaking of what Tuna was saying, I actually, before I went to this office, when I transitioned between, I thought about going to the civilian side, and I went to a couple airports in the area, and I was thinking about trying to get on get my A&P license and try to do an aircraft mechanic or something like that. And one thing I saw with how long I've been in law enforcement and my pay scale, anything entry level, I was going to be taking a huge pay cut as well. So that's another thing to think about too. So if I wanted to start a new career, there's not really too many careers I could start with and make the same as I make now.
Yeah.
With the experience I have. I mean, with the aircraft maintenance thing, I could make money. Yeah. But it would take me multiple years to get, to make good money.
Let's take like 2 minutes. It's middle.
Okay.
This is our middle spot.
Oh, yeah, we're at the intermission.
It's like 2 minutes, and then we pick it back up, and it's part 2, basically. That's what happens. So take like 2 minutes. So if you got like,
do you need a refresh?
Yeah,
refresh, stretch,
take
a
dog
whiz, take the dog out. We'll be right back.